Hi everyone, it's Aunt Fernita. Today's story is called Return of the Runaway. The memory verse is from Ephesians chapter 6, verse 7. It says, "Serve wholeheartedly, as if you were serving the Lord, not men." Today's message is I can serve Jesus at home. How would you like it if someone lived at your house and made your bed for you every day or cleaned your room? If you had a servant, that would probably happen. Years ago, a young man was such a servant, but he became unhappy and he ran away. Then he met Paul. It might have happened like this. Paul looked up as a tall young man came and stood beside him. The young man was dressed for travel and carried a backpack over his shoulder. Paul smiled, then looked down at the letter he had just written. He signed it, rolled it up, and handed it to the young man. "Here, Onesimus," he said, "this is the letter I promised you. It is addressed to your master Philemon. Give it to him as soon as you get home." Paul stood and put his arm around the young man's shoulders. "I told him that you are like a son to me. I know that in the past you were not as useful to him as you have been to me these last few months. But now you have accepted Jesus and love him. I know that you will serve Philemon just as well as you have served me." The young man smiled shyly. Paul continued, "We all know that he has the right to be angry with you for running away. But I told him that you have been helping me, just as he would help me if he were here. I hope he will think about that. I also told him that even though you are still his slave, you are also his brother in Christ. You have become a Christian." Onesimus put his arm around Paul's shoulder. Then he released Paul and put the letter in his bag he had slung over his shoulder. While his head was bent, he brushed a tear out of his eye. He hoped no one had noticed. "One more thing," Paul continued as the two walked toward the door. "I will pay whatever amount you might owe your master Philemon. He actually owes me his life since I was the one who told him about Jesus." Paul smiled as he stopped in the doorway. "I can never thank you enough," Onesimus explained. He threw his bag over his shoulder, lingering a moment. "Go back home and serve Philemon as well as you have served me. That's what Christians do, son. They serve one another right where they are. Now that you are a Christian too, I know that the two of you will get along a lot better." Paul gave Onesimus' shoulder a pat as the young man finally turned to go. "I'd keep you here to help me if I could, but you have to go back home and be willing to serve Philemon first. Maybe someday he will let you come back to me." Paul waved as Onesimus started down the path. "I have asked Philemon to prepare a room for me," he called after the young man. "I am trusting that God will answer my prayers, and I will be able to come and see you both before long." Onesimus gave one last wave over his shoulder, then didn't look back. He was a little afraid to go back to his master he had run away from. But now he was a Christian, and his heart was full of the love of God. He was ready to try again to serve Philemon the way he should. After all, Paul had taught him that being of service at home was a big part of being a Christian.
This podcast is read by Fernita Buddy for Gracelink.net. Created and produced by Falvo Fowler. Post-produced by Faith Toe at Studio El Piso. The theme music is by Clayton Kinney. Animation and artwork by Giogo Godoy. The audio engineer was Karel Holness. For more information, please visit Gracelink.net.